Okay, morning everyone. Just wanted to give you a little bit of feedback from yesterday's lesson. Remember, the lesson was introductions and conclusions. So in the lesson, we looked at introductions and conclusions. We looked at the features of them. We looked at a couple of examples of them. And then your job was to go and write an introduction for the apartheid text, imagining that you've got the 3 slides in the middle, which were, I wonder if I can just find this one. The daily life of black and white people, anti-apartheid protests, and Nelson Mandela, and then you had to go and write the conclusion. So based on what have been sent in, and a lot of you did this task, the greens, so the things that you did well, you provided the general theme, so you referred to the apartheid in it. They were short, and you used questions as a hook. So a couple of good examples of that. This one here. Have you heard of a well-known man named Nelson Mandela? So that's a nice way to hook the reader in. Have you heard about the laws South Africa used to have? So a couple of questions to hook the reader. Can you imagine a world full of unfairness, war, and segregation? So you're asking the reader to think, to draw some sort of feelings from it. So that's a nice way to hook the reader in. So a couple of good examples from that. Provided a general theme again. So it mentions Nelson Mandela, it mentions laws. If you do and want to know more, you can continue reading and explore and allow your mind to explore your imagination. In this text, we'll be going through a system called apartheid and a famous president named Nelson Mandela. So again, those people there have provided the general theme. I get the idea. Okay, the targets though for some people will be to mention the themes of the paragraphs. So not many people mentioned those themes of anti-apartheid protests, daily life of black and white people. A lot of you mentioned Nelson Mandela. So in your introductions, maybe if you could have a little bit more about the anti-apartheid protests and the daily life. Also, a target is that it has to be short, and I'm pleased that most people did that, but it's got to be 3 to 5 sentences. One sentence just isn't enough. It doesn't really introduce anything. This one, for example, it's just one sentence. So have you ever imagined a world where people are separated, discriminated, and treated unfairly? That's a really lovely opening hook question, but there's nothing more to it. So there's no mention of the paragraphs, there's no mention of what actually we're going to read about. And moving on from that one. So, and then the pinks that I've picked out, a lot of you have just got missing words in there. So I've read it back and it could take me all day going through and putting in all the missing words rather than you reading your sentences out aloud. Some people are not using capital letters for Nelson, for Mandela, for South, for Africa, even for sentence openers. And some of it just doesn't make sense. It's like you've written it and then submitted it straight away and not read it. Just a couple of examples. Can you imagine where people treat black people unfairly? And did you ever want to know that who have saved them? So, and also no conclusion on that one. So it's not just that person. There are a few examples. So can you please go and have a look back at the one that you've done, make a couple of changes, do a little bit of editing. And I just wanted to show you a really good example here. This was actually from Mr. Greg, and it's part of today's lesson. So this one starts with inequality, demonstrations, Mandela. So we've looked at those short sentences before, and I've not really seen people. Maybe it's because it's been a long time since we've done a lot of writing and the Alan Pete sentence types, but that's a really nice way of starting it. What connects these? Apartheid. From 1948 to the 1990s, the nation of South Africa was under the regime of apartheid, which was a law that segregated black and white people. So an embedded clause in there as well. And then just a little sentence to lead us into the next paragraph. To find out more, read on. Okay, hope that makes sense. If you've got any questions, let me know in the chat.